Hey guys, so I had this idea for the video to mock Lightning Strike and how every single pebble just completely destroys Lightning Strike. But actually I was running on the map and searching for those pebbles and I couldn't find a single pebble like that. Obviously big boxes and trees and sometimes doorways still block it, but it's really not that bad as it used to be long ago. And this isn't anything new, I was just expecting it to be worse. However, this build is kind of awkward. It does have good single target damage, but it also has bad single target damage. So here's the trick for using Lightning Strike. If you use Ancestral Call, you can hit enemies if they are far away with the projectile and also trigger Ancestral Call, which would reach enemies with a melee attack. So you basically hit enemies 2 times. Of course, projectile damage still deals less damage, but it is overall more DPS than with just either projectile or melee attack. However, it is pretty difficult to position yourself against let's say Hydra or Shaper when you need to constantly move and reposition yourself. If you are too close, you will just hit with melee attack and won't proc Ancestral Call. If you are too far, you will just hit with the projectile attack and won't proc Ancestral Call. So against map bosses in most cases the damage felt extremely good, but when I tried Hydra and later on Shaper, I was completely blown away by how terrible it felt. That's why I said that it has good single target DPS, but it also has bad single target DPS. As for the clear speed, it's pretty obvious that it has pretty good clear speed because projectile travel far away, even off screen, but you can't really leap slam into enemy pack because that actually is pretty bad for your clear speed. And of course very dangerous, because this build is pretty squishy. So maybe let me explain how this build was born. So I was theory crafting some builds and I couldn't decide what I want to play, and I kind of wanted to try Lightning Strike since I haven't played it in a very long time. And then during the stream someone notified me that Fenumus Weave gloves finally dropped its price to 4 exalts, and my goal this week was to get those gloves since they are my favorite gloves and I love aspect of the spider. And then I somehow thought maybe I should stack all sorts of slow. So since Fenumus Weave and aspect of the spider gives hinder and slow, then maybe I could add cold damage and chills for slow, maybe even temp chain. And then I started thinking about Lightning Strike and how it only converts 50% of physical damage into lighting, and I didn't really want to use physical lighting support gem. And then I remembered there is an item for that, Brain Rattler 2-handed mace. Converts 50% of physical damage into lighting, gives 20% lighting pen, and also slows enemies when you shock them. And then I had to decide to either go Elemental Overload, Crit, or a Resolute Technique. Since the weapon itself has pretty bad base crit chance and it is pretty slow, going Crit was not really an option. Elementalist would be an obvious choice, but after some calculation in path of building, I decided to go with non-crit Inquisitor. And I'm still not sure if I made the right choice because I was hoping that the regen from the consecrated ground for life and mana, especially for mana, would cover the mana needs, but I still had to get Watcher's Eye for mana leech, and I can't really guarantee shocks on biggest bosses, which also means I cannot guarantee the slow from the weapon, and it's also hard to tell if the enemy is shocked because of the spider webs covering them, but in some clips you will see that the boss becomes extremely slowed down. However, despite that, Inquisitor still has some decent benefits. It is a bit more defensive than Elementalist, and it does have more attack speed. And since I would still be getting attack speed nodes near the Templar, I would also be getting dex and accuracy, so I may as well go with Elemental Overload. And that's how this build was born. Since this is not really a build that I would recommend, especially since it does have a pretty high price tag, I thought I would instead give my thought process of creating this build, and maybe you could use some aspects of this build and adapt it to your own. Now let me quickly mention the items that I use, and mainly just uniques. I'm actually using Shroud of the Lightless body armor, and my Lightning Strike inside it is linked with other lighting damage, faster attacks, elemental damage for attacks, and Ancestral Call. And of course the body armor itself gives level 20 elemental penetration, and combined I have 86% lighting penetration. Next, Fenumus Weave gloves. Like I said, I paid 4 exalts, but it may be a bit higher now. But you can absolutely use 2-socket Tombfist just fine, and you wouldn't even need to reserve extra mana because of that. And inside my gloves I have Herald of Ice, linked with Enlighten level 3, Wrath, and also have Blood Rage. Blood Rage is just for attack speed. And in the Brain Rattler I have Ancestral Protector for attack speed, linked with physical to lighting support gem, elemental damage for attacks, elemental focus, and melee physical damage. and it does pretty decent damage, but if you want Culling Strike you could replace melee physical damage with Culling Strike. I also needed more accuracy, so my rings are mostly with accuracy and resistance as life, while the amulet, so you actually need either amulet or a ring with lightning damage leech as life. I did not want to use Wallace Mark on a hit ring, which I had. It just didn't really feel good because you are killing enemies with the first hit, so you're not really leeching it. So while mapping it did feel pretty bad. You could replace with a life gain on hit ring, but then again it probably wouldn't be as good for single target. I also have Orb of Storms linked with critical strike support just to trigger elemental overload more reliably. You may also want to link it with Curse and hit with like Temp Chain, but I still kept cast when damage taken with Temp Chain because it felt better while mapping. When you get hit you basically curse all those enemies and slow them down so they don't hit you again. But against bosses like Shaper and Guardians it may be better to use Orb of Storm with Curse on hit, so you can basically guarantee the slow and be safer, because otherwise you would need to get hit and that may mean one shot. Also, like I said, I have Watcher Side with Mana Leech from Lightning damage while affected by Wrath. I took the Minnow nodes for damage, Minnow attack speed which also affects me, other attack speed nodes, other damage nodes, all of the jewels with at least some life and some damage, either flare damage, accuracy, well you can see the rest. I will include Path of Building import code as always in the description. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention, while Lightning Strike does not benefit from Ancestral Call, so you actually just reduce the damage for while Lightning Strike by using Ancestral Call. And that's gonna be it. I think for my next build I'm gonna be doing Deadeye CI Cremation with almost full Fenumus set. It may or may not be good, we'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching and see you soon.